Awesome. So we're going into session 2 now. Session 1 and kind of what we're talking about this series is specifically on kind of recruiting as a whole, right? There's so many different parts to it. And the more and more we jump into this stuff and dive in, what I'm really is realizing and learning is that even with like 3 weeks of deep dive, there's still so many weird little nuances that go into recruiting. It's like not even funny, right? So we're probably going to do some more masterminds on this stuff in like a less formal setting at some point, but we're excited to jump in today. Last week, we talked about specifically kind of the basics and the foundations of setting up a recruiting framework. If you're going to start actually growing and adding agents and doing all that stuff, what actually needs to happen before you start doing that so that your model doesn't just absolutely explode? I don't know if anyone on this call has grown too fast before, but usually Justin has. I know I have. It's fun. Usually what happens is everything explodes, right? You start to notice like stress fractures in the business and there's 10,000 things going on. So last week, we talked about things you can do proactively to try and avoid them. Are they all avoidable? Absolutely not, because humans are the variable in the equation and we're crazy unique creatures, right? This week, we're going to get a little bit more tactical, and I want to talk about recruiting conversations specifically. So let's say that we do get in front of an agent. However we do that, regardless if it's a cold call or an inbound or a referral from our agent on our team, how are we having conversations that actually get them across the finish line? Because here's what I'll let you guys know. Growing real estate teams and brokerages is simple, but it's not easy. And the same way that everyone on this call, I can almost guarantee you, and Justin, this is like totally your dojo, is constantly preaching to their agents that they need to be practicing their scripts and talk tracks so that they're not practicing on paychecks. The same thing is true with recruiting. Right? These calls and conversations and how they're actually done, it's not something that you can just go into and, hey, I'm just going to have conversations and hope for the best. If you say that or think that, you can't ever coach your agents on doing better and practicing their scripts more because you are a hypocrite, my friend. And I'm speaking to myself in the mirror when I say this, right? So today we're going to go through some of the conversations, the tactical part of getting people across the finish line, how to explain your value prop, how to qualify an agent so you make sure that they actually fit from the 3 C's perspective, and all the weird little nuances that go in between these things. Does this sound like a good plan for everyone? Okay, groovy like a drive-in movie. Let's jump in. What I'm going to do this time, you like that? Justin likes my little...
You are full of these like what are they called? Like idioms?
Yeah.
Basically. You're like a really quirky Yoda is what you are.
It makes it interesting and fun. I'll keep pulling them out. What we want to do today, though, guys, and Justin and I were talking about this before. What I'm going to do, if you guys are cool with it, is I'm going to call on a couple of us as we go through this. Justin and I don't know everything, right? We know some good stuff, and we've got like this osmosis going on with a bunch of different teams and brokerages now. But I want to hear too how you guys are doing some of these things, because the reality is, how we get really, really, really good at this, there's a quote, and again, sorry for the nerdiness, but I like reading. Spend your time studying the works of others so that you can easily gain what others have labored hard for, right? When we all share these ideas in mastermind, guess what happens? We all get better, faster, all that cool stuff. So I'm going to do this interactive today, and I'm going to call on a couple of you guys to see how you're doing some of this stuff too, in addition to giving you the scripting and talk tracks and all that cool stuff. Does that sound like a plan? All right. So a couple of things we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about cold outreach strategies specifically. So different ways to get conversations started with agents cold apart from the inbound stuff. We're going to talk about cold calling scripting. Our favorite thing on the planet is to cold call, obviously, because we're all in real estate, right? That's a joke. Most of us hate cold calling, but that's okay. So we'll talk about the scripting and the formula for that. We're going to talk about if you do get a warm introduction to an agent, whether it be from a referral or an inbound lead of some sort that you've created through a marketing effort, best practices for those conversations, because obviously they're way different than cold calling. We'll talk a little bit about discovery. So qualifying agents, I like to use the word discovery versus qualifying because no one likes to be qualified. And then we'll talk about closing. I think this is something that in recruiting scenarios, most people are afraid of doing, right? The closing part of this, I promise you, you can be direct and close without being pushy, right? Think about you guys in your real estate businesses now. I'm sure you ask for the business regularly, right? This is the same concept. And like Justin and I have talked about on other calls, the key is just doing it. So we'll go through that. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end, and then we'll kind of go from there. For those of you guys that don't know Justin, ChatGPT made this. We showed you guys this last week. This is Justin and I. Justin's the CEO and founder of Shiloh. I'm on the Humanize side. We're working together really closely on this stuff. We've got this super cool brain synergy thing going on that's awesome. And a lot of you guys already know us, which is great.
Hey, Chris, have you actually ever worn a suit?
I'm wearing a blazer today, Marty. Short answer is no. ChatGPT did that. The last time I wore a suit was at my wedding, and I'll find a picture of it. Lasted about an hour and a half. As soon as the ceremony started, I took the rest of the suit off and was just wearing the vest without a shirt on. It was great.
See, that sounds much more on brand. That right
much
there.
More punk rock.
Yes.
Justin wears shirts like this though regularly, so we're good and truthful there. To ask before we jump in, I'm going to start this session every time like this. I ask that you guys, a lot of this stuff is new, open mind, right? And what we come to learn at these sessions, nothing makes me happier, and it should make you happy too. But if you want to do it for someone else, do it for me. It makes me super giddy when I see posts in the Facebook group saying, hey, Chris, I tried the LinkedIn messaging script and I got a conversation started, right? Or, hey, Chris, I tried this recruiting call and I did X, Y, and Z and it worked. That stuff's awesome. That's how we make progress as people. So let's stay focused on action after these sessions as well. So let's jump into some cold outreach strategy. By a show of hands, and by hands I mean in the chat, out of curiosity, how many of you are spending regular time on a weekly basis doing cold outreach to agents for a recruiting purpose? And you can say I'm not in the chat too, but just out of curiosity, who's doing that currently? I'll give everyone a second. Kelsey says negative ghostwriter. Lisa raised her hand. Nikki raised her hand. No. Okay. So we got some yeses. We got some nos, right? This is good. And I'm going to call on the yeses here shortly to see what they're doing. But I want to walk you through some best practices for cold outreach and what they look like. There's only really two strategies. And when I say cold outreach, I mean you going out and shaking the tree trying to generate conversations. There's really two strategies. There's cold calls, get it? The snowflake next to the phone means it's a cold call, ha, 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 ha. There's cold outreach via email, text message, and social media, right? Both of these strategies that you guys are looking at here work, right? The key that everyone forgets is it works when you work it, right? Same concept as expireds and FSBOs and all that stuff. Nothing's going to pick up the phone and do it for you, right? So those of you guys that are doing it now actively, hats off to you. Awesome, controlling our own destiny. For those of you guys that aren't yet, we're going to give you some best practices, and some of the people on this call, I'm sure, are willing to share what's working for them script-wise to actually do this successfully. The benefits of doing it cold, you guys, in terms of it, you control your own destiny of who you're calling and why, right? This isn't an outbound marketing effort where you're putting feelers out in the world and waiting for people to come to you, which obviously there's a time and place for. You can be extremely tactical, borderline surgical with who you're calling and why, right? And for a lot of you guys that I'm looking at on this call, I know your guys' models and what you run, right? And what your value prop is and a lot of this stuff. With cold outreach like this, you can get super tactical of the exact avatar you are trying to call, right? Which in my opinion, you can reach out and touch someone like that. You get a conversation started. It's a major win. Justin, do you have any thoughts here?
Not really. Not right out of the gate.
Cool. Let's keep it going and actually get into some of these conversations. So this is the part where if you're one of those people that's like, Chris, I'm going to close the knowing doing gap and go put this into action. This is the part where I would pay attention, because I'm going to give you a framework that you can create your own outbound calling script, right? I'm going to give you my version. What you do with it, though, is up to you. And I would highly encourage you to customize it a little bit. So here's a couple of thoughts. When you're doing cold outreach, especially over the phone, there's a couple things you need to accomplish. Out of curiosity, who's gotten a really shitty cold recruiting call recently? Is anyone?
I still get them all the time, like constantly.
Can someone come off of mute and share with me what their approach was? I saw Kelsey raise their hand, but I don't think your name is Kelsey. Or is it? Kelsey Morris?
It is.
Okay,
Yes.
Kelsey, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Sometimes people are using other people's Zooms, right? And I'm always like, okay, is that your actual name? So awesome. Kelsey, what did the recruiter say when they called you out of curiosity, brother?
It just wasn't, well, number one, I didn't give him the time of day. So I didn't give him very long to get into it, but it was just real hesitant. Like they didn't jump in right into to a script. This is da from EXP, and I'm calling him. And as soon as you hear EXP, you're just done.
Yeah. That's knee-jerk reaction. Did it sound like was it like an offshore recruiter, or was it like an actual team leader or broker calling you? Or
it sounded like a newbie who was trying to build their downline.
Cool. That sounds familiar. Robin, what about you?
It was this uninterrupted stream of the services that they offer.
Yeah.
Didn't ask anything about me. Wasn't all that interested. Yeah.
So it was like someone just called you and threw up features on you and was like, hey, X, Y, and Z, here's my value. Cool. So this is the opposite of this. For those of you guys that have been in the game for a while, Justin, you said you still get recruiting calls. There is nothing worse than getting a call from someone where they're like, hey, this is so-and-so calling from so-and-so company. My broker's super impressed with you. Would you be interested in having coffee with my broker to learn a little bit more about your business? What is valuable for us as the person who's being recruited in that conversation? Nothing. Again, this is my opinion that I'm going to run you guys through. I'd love to hear some actual scripts from what people are using now, but I want to give you some context to some simple frameworks that have worked really well for me. You need to tell them why you're calling out of the gate, right? They know it's a recruiting call. I promise, right? When you call and you don't go, hey, I'm calling about 123 ABC Street right out of the gate, they know why you are calling. So might as well rip the Band-Aid off with them, right? I quickly want to give them a one-liner value hook, right? To Robin's point, throwing up on them that we have this and this and this and all this cool stuff. That's not a value prop. That's feature dumping, which is like the antithesis of what sales should be out of the gate. We want to ask for permission in some way, shape, or form, right? I don't know about you guys. Sometimes you hear in sales, and I don't know if anyone subscribes to this type of messaging. Sometimes in sales, you hear like, hey, well, if you ask for permission, you're lowering your status and you're giving them power and blah, blah, blah. I like to be polite. I think you can be polite in cold call, and asking for permission, in my opinion, isn't the end of the world. It actually gives you some humanity on the call, right? Qualifying and teasing an outcome. And I'll show you what that sounds like momentarily on this actual script. So an example would be, can I tell you what top agents on our team are doing differently, X, Y, and Z? And then lastly, asking for time. You are not going to recruit them on the first conversation, no matter what, right? Especially if you're cold calling. In my opinion, objectively, what you should be trying to accomplish by the end of the call is what? I want to set up time to walk them through my value prop in detail and learn a little bit more about that. That's all I'm accomplishing. If that takes me a minute or 2 minutes, fantastic. All I'm trying to do is get more time with them, because the reality is they've probably got 10,000 things going on and aren't in a place where they can talk, right? So this framework, I'm going to show you an example now, right? My ask is, do not take this framework and just read it verbatim on your first recruiting call. How you get really good at this is by sharing it. So I'll give you guys my example, and then I would love to hear someone that's actually making calls regularly right now. Share with me what's working for them. So here's the exact example. And this is how I used to do it when I was cold calling, right? And I spent at least 2 or 3 hours a week, every week, cold calling for recruiting when I was building my team. The reason being is it works, and it works really well. You control your own destiny. Hey, Katie, this is Chris Gianos calling from ABC Real Estate. Do you have 30 seconds for me, right? What do we think this does in their brains? Just so you guys know. Robin and et cetera. Robin was saying that someone just started feature dumping on him right out of the gate, right? I forgot who the other person, Kelsey was the other person that said that the second he heard EXP, his brain shut off, right? And again, there's EXP's great, Real's great. All these companies are fantastic. I am agnostic, but there's like knee-jerk reaction that happens when we get cold called, right? We have to follow with something tangible. So the example, and this is exactly what I would say if I were you guys. Hey, I'll be super brief. I know you have 10,000 things going on. The reason for my call is I have a really weird problem on my team right now. I have more leads than I do agents willing to work them. And I'm curious if I could show you a direct pathway to closing an extra 10 to 15 transactions in the next 12 months. Would you at least be open to hearing a little bit more about what ABC Real Estate does for our agents? And then I shut up. right? What do you think happens next? They only say really one of two things. Yeah, I guess I'd be open to hearing about it. Or they're going to say no. And then you kind of rephrase your question and try again. This is a really simple intro that works. Success rate wise with a script like this, to give you guys some context, if I called 30 or 40 people, I was usually setting up 2 or 3 appointments, right? It's a very simple script and it works. And obviously everyone's value prop is different, but going at it like this is going to result in actual conversations getting started. Now, I'm curious, for those of you guys that are actively recruiting now, and this is the part where I want to make this interactive, there were a couple of us that said yes, right? We are. So Nikki was one of the few that said, hey, we're actively doing this now. Nikki, can you walk me through what those conversations sound like and how you guys are actually introing those calls from a cold calling perspective?
Yeah, so we're using a similar script. Our main, value prop is that, we want you to work smarter work smarter, not harder. Make more money per hour.
Sure.
It's basically we're doing a similar little quick intro call. Hey, there's a couple things here, and let's schedule another call when we can, or come on in and meet with us, something like that.
Is it you, Nikki, that's making those calls, or do you guys have a recruiter that's making them? Or
it is not me. It is recruiters.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. All right. Thank you for sharing that. And then Dana was the other one. Dana, could you share with us what's working for you guys on scripting like this? If you're in a position to unmute yourself and you don't have stage fright. Maybe. Dana's still on mute. Maybe Dana is multitasking and driving down the freeway.
Well, maybe Dana pops in. You know how we get those texts of like, hey, I've got a referral in your area. Are you looking for more seller leads kind of thing? I'm getting recruiting text messages and calls of people masking themselves as that now. So I always respond to these text messages because I want to see what people are doing. Like, I'm just curious to see what's going to happen. And then they go into the script of like, okay, well, our team. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like I'm going to give you a referral, but actually this is I'm trying to recruit you text message or call. So
I don't know how I feel about that.
Bait and switch type thing.
Yeah, the bait and switch thing is kind of funky. I don't know how I feel about that. Justin was the other one that said they were making some calls like this. Justin, what about you? What does your guys' script sound like? If you're in a spot to unmute yourself. I think we got people that are multitasking, and that's totally okay. Justin Neal. We'll come back to Justin.
Mic isn't working.
That's okay,
convenient, Justin. That's convenient. So convenient.
So the point with this is, and what I would encourage you guys to do is, now that you have a framework, what I would do is I would make this your own. This type of scripting, we've heard it. Nikki's doing something similar. It sounds like Justin's probably doing something similar in certain terms of these intros. You don't have to overcomplicate this. People avoid this thing because it's the same reason agents have call reluctance. I don't want to make the calls, Chris. It's nerve-wracking. And what happens if they say no? They say no. They're not offending you. They don't know you. Well, sometimes they know you personally, right? Mike Stearns is saying, who do you call? That's a good question, Mike. We'll get to that. There's some stuff in here. Where are you getting lists of agents to calls? All right, let's talk about it now. Justin says Ghostbusters. So here's what I would do. Before you go out and invest a lot of money into a software, there's a bunch of them, right? Market View Broker, Broker Metrics, there's Courted, there's a bunch of different solutions, right? Before you invest any money into software, here's the really free, simple way to do it. Call your title rep, for those of you guys that are in title states, right, which is a lot of us, and say, hey, I'm trying to recruit real estate agents to my team. I need some agent data. Can you pull a list for me with contact information of all the agents that meet these attributes? I promise you, your title reps are begging for ways to show you value, right? And if you call them, their brains are going to light on fire. Before you spend money on a solution that becomes like what do they call, like a closet ornament, right? It's just going to sit on the shelf and not really do a whole lot. I would reach out to your title rep. Or if you want to get really simple, you can go into the MLS, right? And pull up people that meet your criteria and call them that way, right? Just the point I'm trying to make is, don't go and spend $500, $700, $1,000 a month on something if you're not going to get into the cold calling thing detailed, because you're just going to waste your money. Does this make sense to everyone? And we can go through this a little bit more in detail, but there's a couple of things there. The next thing I want to show you guys is something that's kind of abstract and out there. Who's ever done any type of prospecting on LinkedIn before? Has anyone ever done any recruiting prospecting on LinkedIn? Has anyone ever been on LinkedIn in general? Most agents? Okay, cool. Good. Just wanted to make sure. I don't know if you know this, but on LinkedIn, and this is something that you could go and do immediately following this conversation. This is about as tactical as it gets. I'm going to give you guys a LinkedIn DM that you can use, right? You can go on LinkedIn and search by positions. You can go in and say, hey, I want to find real estate agents in the greater Phoenix metro, and it will show you every real estate agent that has that title in your marketplace. You can connect with them. Again, you don't need a whole lot of tools to do this, but here's a message. Does anyone know Jimmy Mackin out of curiosity? Does everyone know Jimmy Mackin from listingleads.com? Okay, Jimmy's a good friend of mine. When I need copywriting help, I call Jimmy Mackin.
He's the marketing guru for sure.
Oh my God, he's insane, right? And when I need copywriting help, I call Jimmy Mackin. I said, Jimmy, I want to write a really, really sick LinkedIn cold DM for our customers. Can you help me? Right. And him and I got on Zoom for like a half hour, 45 minutes and hammered this thing out. This exact template with a customer of ours that I run like super secret beta test projects with because they're willing to let me screw up and stuff. It's been a long time friend of mine. We sent this out. We sent about 1,000 of them over the course of like 3 or 4 months, right? Using some automation and some tools. You know what the response rate was on it? A cold LinkedIn message, like 15%, right? In terms of actually getting responses. Not saying conversion rate is 15%. Response rate on cold messaging being 15%. This is written like a masterful message. There's a short version of it too, if you'd rather get a little bit more intentional. But this type of messaging, it's fascinating to me sometimes that we hear how often a pain point is recruiting in most people's businesses, right? This is free. You can take this after we get off this call and go on LinkedIn. You can add 10 or 15 people, and when they accept you, you can shoot them a message. And it's free. It costs no money. All it takes is your time, and all it's going to require is a little bit of effort on your guys' end. The reason I'm giving you templates like this is I want you to start thinking about recruiting a little bit more abstract. Beyond just the cold outbound outreach and creating inbounds, there are tons of ways you guys can get in front of agents. You just have to be methodical about it. Where are all of our agents for the most part? I can almost guarantee you they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, they're on LinkedIn, they're on all these places. We just have to find ways to get in front of them with the right messaging at the right time, which is a function of trial and error and actually doing things. Does this make sense to everyone? Cool. Out of curiosity, has anyone ever done any cold messaging on like Instagram or anything like that? Kelsey, you're nodding. What have you guys tried?
Instagram and LinkedIn. Facebook was kind of a dud. With Instagram, I did a lot. It was more like I would post reels about recruiting and production, not much messaging, but on LinkedIn, a little bit of messaging. It was nothing scripted. So I took screenshots of both of these, and I'll be implementing these here very soon.
I love that, man. In terms of the messaging, so on Instagram, it was a little more organic, it sounds like. So you were just messaging people, striking up conversation, what's going on in the market, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And on that, I was really looking for agents that I know that have had a past relationship with or transactions with or same brokerage at one time, somebody that's going to know my name. So it's not necessarily as cold as maybe you're suggesting.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. In our markets, for most of us that are like team leaders and stuff, is any message you send to an agent ice cold, right? For those of us that have been in the business for a while, that have teams in the area, no, they're like lukewarm, right? If you're in a big market, like in Orange County where I was at, there are 38,000 licensed real estate agents, right? You can walk out in front of your house, throw a rock and hit one. There's probably some cold people in there, right? But in smaller markets, you guys know who all the players are. Right. And obviously with those people, the messaging might need to be a little different, but it's something to consider for sure. Is this being a channel for you? Mike Stern said, how many cold agents can you send per day or per week? On LinkedIn, if you're a human doing it, a bagajillion, right? Like if you have human behavior, Justin, go for it. You have some tech thoughts here?
Yeah, LinkedIn's super sensitive to like bot reach out type
Correct.
stuff, So if you are going to do that, just make sure it's like no more than 10 messages an hour kind of thing. It's like very
using
low.
A bot, right?
Using a bot, correct. If you're a human clicking around on the interface, it interacts differently, right? So that's completely okay. LinkedIn is one of those crazy places where they don't want you to do it because they are trying to upsell you into that sales navigator thing or the recruiting thing that does it for you. So they don't want you using outside tools to do the thing that they are trying to sell you into, right? Because there is a really expensive version of LinkedIn that will do that cold outreach stuff for you automatically. So 100%. Just be careful on that side, but don't be scared of LinkedIn. I expect to see people trying to sell me something every time I log into LinkedIn, honestly.
Guys, we use LinkedIn at Human. Like I have a bot. There's a tool called Duck Soup. I don't know if anyone's ever played with that. I have Duck Soup running on LinkedIn all day for Humanize, right? And it scatters it and staggers the messages and stuff. So we haven't ever gotten shut off, and it's limited. And I think it only sends, Justin, to your point, like 10 or 15 a day. But like, it's a super cool tool. It's like very targeted and very, very easy way to do it. So what I'm trying to get your guys' brains wrapped around is use these as starting points, right? You can get creative with your messaging. Just get it in front of people. Being a good marketer is, in my opinion, it's far less about what you get in front of people and far more just getting it in front of them, right? So this is where that knowing doing gap thing comes into play. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be consistent, which is all we're really after. So let's talk a little bit about scripting for inbound leads. And this will transition into talking about how to explain a value prop the right way too. And this goes with cold and inbound stuff. But let's talk about the intake of warm stuff first to give you guys some context. So there's a couple boards or social media. Obviously, you've got stuff like Humanize and Genureal that you can do as well. But there's a bunch of different sources where you can get contacts from. There's a couple of things to remember when you're talking to warm leads, right? And what I mean by warm leads is people that have proactively reached out to you directly, right? There's a couple of things to remember. When you get a lead, and I know this sounds like common sense, speed to lead, regardless of where it's coming from, whether it's a referral from your past, an agent on your team that's bringing you a friend of theirs or whatever it may be. These things get underlooked. And I think people treat recruiting leads different than they do buyer and seller leads, right? Which is like a fatal mistake. Any type of lead, if you are going to pay for it, or you've done the brand work to make it to where they just come to you, the speed to lead thing is the single biggest way to stand out and actually provide a high level of service, right? So it's one of those things where you want to make sure that you're reaching out to whoever it is very, very quickly. If someone's reaching out to you, right, they're coming to you through whatever channel it is, assume there's high interest. Do we hire anybody with a pulse and a real estate license? No, we don't. That's the worst business decision on the planet. There's three things that we need to remember with every candidate that we bring in, right? Culture, character, and coachability. And we'll go through how to get to that momentarily. But just because they came to you does not mean they are a good fit. I'll give you an actual example. I had a lady, I saw some post on a forum, I forgot it was on Reddit or something, where some lady was looking for a real estate brokerage in South Orange County, right? And that used to be my hood. And I was like, oh, I know like 5 people. So I DM'd her and was like, hey, I can make a bunch of intros and X, Y, and Z. Something told me I should Google this lady's name because her username on Reddit was very strange before I did it. The lady's license had been suspended and all sorts of crazy stuff, right? So just because someone expresses interest in what we do doesn't mean we shouldn't qualify them. So we'll run through that momentarily. A really good litmus test for when you're talking to someone that came to you is ask them what they know about you and what made them reach out, right? Nothing is worse than being in a conversation and someone just not having done any research about who you are and what your value prop is prior to the conversation. Right. It's a really fast way that, and Justin, I'm sure you share that too with interviewing even for like Shiloh and stuff. If someone doesn't have the wherewithal to do a little research on me before reaching out, it's usually not a very good sign.
Yeah.
Right. It shows laziness and we're not really after that. And shifting from pitching to partnering with someone. And what I mean by that is, regardless of what we would all like to think, these are sales calls, right? When you're recruiting, we know the average agent. And again, if you guys don't know this, this is really important. Statistically, from what we learned at Humanize over the last couple of years, the average agent talks to 3 different brokerages before they make a move, right? They're talking to you and 2 other people. Knowing that, right, we're up against people, other brokerages, other teams, whatever it may be, that a lot of the time probably are fabricating what reality is like on their team a little bit, right? And it's a lot more sales. The reality is, knowing that, we still have to be persuasive in nature of these conversations and make sure that we're staying on our P's and Q's, but you're going into business with this person, right? It's more important than to just explain your value prop, to actually understand what makes them tick, why they're in the industry, what they're looking for in their next opportunity, so that you can adequately explain your value prop to these people the right way. So let's talk about what a recruiting like appointment flow should look like with warm stuff. And I'm curious if this matches what people are doing now. I recommend always, no matter what, a 2-step interview process, nothing more, right? I'm out of curiosity, just so I have some context too. Can we put in the chat, how many steps is your guys' interview process now? Can someone give me an idea in the chat of how many they're doing? Kelsey says 3. Emma 3, Haley 2. I don't have one. Okay, cool. That's okay, Mike. We can give you some context.
Ours is 5 over here. Just to let, that's probably overkill for what we're talking about here, but ours is 5. Yeah. So
yeah, I'm trying to think what we do it. Humanize is probably like 4 or 5 too. I think I've even gotten a couple more calls than that. It's a little different, right? On the real estate side, here's what I recommend. If you're working like a warm introduction, someone coming to you from a paid source or someone that you know, repeat referral, et cetera, in my opinion, 2 steps is pretty adequate, right? I've seen 4, 5, 6, 7-step interview processes, and let me tell you what happens. If we think that, and know, according to data, that there's 3 other people, there's a total of 3 brokerages that are talking to an agent about making a move. How many interview steps is a traditional real estate brokerage? 1. You show up to the face-to-face meeting and they slam your head on the table and say, sign, right? And like, give me your credit card, and it's off to the races, right? Knowing that, and nothing, there's anything wrong with that, but that's like reality. That's what we're competing against. Sometimes if your interview process is 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, knowing that they're going to go into interactions where someone's going to try and close them on the spot after just a single meeting with them, you might start to lose out if it's too long, where they went with something else because it was convenient in front of them. In my opinion, with warm stuff, 2 is the magic number, right? So it's 2-step. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get on and have a discovery call, I call it, right? No one likes screening calls or interview. It's a discovery call. We're going to learn a little bit more about each other. This call is 15 to 20 minutes long. There's 2 things that you're trying to accomplish on this call. This is it. Only 2 things. Well, I got balloons today. That's cool. The first is qualifying to what we call the 3 C's: culture, character, and coachability. That's priority numero uno. Have you ever hired someone that didn't fit the 3 C's before and regretted it later?
Every time.
All of us have, right? Doesn't matter how much real estate they sell. Sometimes they suck and it's unavoidable. The second thing we want to do is pitch value prop and explain the how, not the what. I'm going to show you an exact example of that momentarily. The second interview is really simple. It's 45 minutes long. We're going to qualify further and dig a little bit deeper in person. Out of curiosity too, this is funny that this is popping into my brain right now. Humble, hungry, smart, Kelsey says. Same concept, brother. We're speaking the same language. Has anyone ever had a really great phone interview with someone and then they show up to a face-to-face interview and you're like, oh my God, right? This is like completely different than the phone call in terms of what I thought about the successfulness of this opportunity. Has anyone ever had that happen? I've had some very interesting situations like that. So just something to consider when you get face-to-face with people. That face-to-face meeting really has a couple of different things we're trying to do. We're qualifying, we're pitching value prop further with visual aid ideally, and I'll show you what that looks like momentarily. And then we're going to close. If you notice on here, I put close tastefully. I have a very unique process for getting someone across the finish line that I'm going to share with you guys that I've heard almost no one else duplicating before. And it's really, really, really easy. It's just asking. So let's talk about this a little bit in terms of what they sound like. When we're having a discovery call, this goes with a cold call. This goes with an inbound lead in any way, shape, or form. There's a bunch of different questions you can ask. Do we want to ask someone 5 questions in a row? No. That's called like Spanish Inquisition interrogating someone. We don't want to interrogate someone. We want to have a conversation. I gave you guys 5 options because I want you to be able to have some choices of what feels the best to you. The only question that I ever really asked during an initial phone screen, I'm going to give it to you guys. It's the 5th one on here. And I know what you're thinking, Chris, how can you determine if someone's a culture fit or a character fit based on asking them one question that takes them 2 minutes to reply to? And I'll tell you how. It only goes one of 2 ways. Having done, I don't know, probably 1,000 recruiting calls myself personally, right? Interviews with agents. This question only goes one of 2 ways. So I would say, Tammy, it's awesome. I appreciate you making the time to chat with me. Here's the agenda of our conversation. To get us started, tell me a little bit about the last 12 months of your real estate life. How's it been going as of lately? And then I would shut up. And guess what? That conversation only goes one of 2 directions, right? Direction 1, they're going to say something along the lines of, yeah, Chris, so here's the deal, man. I've been licensed for 3 years. I'm working super hard. I crushed it during 2021 and 2022. And then when the market shifted, I started getting my butt kicked a little bit, but I've still been doing open houses and I'm spending money on this and I'm working super hard. I'm just not getting the traction I would like. So I'm exploring new opportunities. Is that an adequate response? Will we take that? That's called personal accountability. They're trying hard. They're not getting the results they want. They're looking for new options. That's option 1 where it goes. Who wants to guess what option 2 is? Option 2, if you've ever watched game shows, is where they hit that buzzer and it's like, you lose. There's a couple of different things to listen for. So Tammy, tell me about your real estate life over the last 12 months. How's it been going? Well, Chris, my broker, Ron, is a moron. And when I went to work there, he told me that he was going to give me all the leads in the world and all this training, and all the leads he gives me suck. And the market sucks and interest rates are crappy and everything is everyone else's fault but my own. That's pretty much the only other direction that conversation goes, right? I have hired that person when it's been light before, where there was a little bit of hesitancy. I can promise you in 6 months, guess what that person's going to be doing? They're going to be talking to another broker about how bad Marty sucks, right? That's just how it works out, right? Broker shaming, blaming the market, all of this stuff is, in my opinion, it's like an unforgivable, right? Because guess what? Regardless of how good your team is, your systems, your leads, your training, all of this stuff, regardless of how good all that stuff is, those types of people, from the sounds in my brain, and I know this sounds a little crazy, it doesn't matter what we give them. They're going to have problems regardless of where they go. And that's a serious problem. Out of curiosity, for those of you guys that are actively recruiting now, who's got another qualifying question that they ask that they think gives them some solid answers? Can someone come off of mute and give me an example of what they're asking during their interview process? Marty, can you play ball? Marty's got one. I know he does.
You know, I'm not from real estate, but I used to interview in tech. I would ask them, tell me about your most recent tech project. Same question, right?
Okay.
And then you can tell, you ask people this question, you can tell the people who've been doing it part-time or can't really speak to what they've been doing for the past 12 months.
So it's like are they enthusiastic about what they're doing, but it's also somewhat of a competency test, it sounds like.
Yeah, because if you've been living it for 12 months, you don't have to make up a story about it, right? You just say what happens. But people who hide problems or whatever, it's like a scripted. They're making something up, and it just doesn't flow naturally. You can tell.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Justin?
That's like my favorite question to ask on the tech side. I always ask engineers. I like throw away their resume because I don't care what like school forced them to build or whatever, and I go like, cool. So like, what have you built in the past 12 months?
Exactly.
Like for fun. Like what have you built? What have you done kind of thing? And if they're like, not really anything, like, no, definitely not the person I'm looking for, right? If they've built something in their past already, then they have initiative. They also love doing it. So they're just doing it on their off time just for fun, basically. And like they have the ability to see it through if they've kind of completed projects, right? So I think it'd be kind of this, trying to figure out how to ask that question for real estate agents would be really interesting, you know, like what have you been doing in the past 12 months to generate leads, you know, or whatever that looks like.
When I get face-to-face with people, there's another question that I like to ask, especially on the agent side, is like, hey, so talk to me about a time where you royally screwed up with a client, right? And giving them like the opportunity to talk about like a screw up the biggest red flag you could get in calls like that is when someone says, oh, I haven't really ever had a big screw up. I'm like, perfect. That means you're not trying hard enough, right? Like there's more there. So there's a bunch of different questions you can ask here. The key is you got to read between the lines and infer what's actually happening. They'll tell you all you need to know. You just got to listen. So here's the part where I want to get into a little bit of pitching value and explaining your value prop. The example I pulled out of a script, which you guys will get after we get off this call, is a really simple one to explain. And sure, this can be applied for any team or brokerage. You don't have to talk about leads. You can do this with training. You could do it with support that you provide. I think a trap that we all get stuck in is explaining the how, not the what, right? And what I mean by that is we'll use Zillow, for example, right? How many of you guys have ever spent money on Zillow leads and wasted it? Right. Once upon a time with Premier Agent, where like when it first started, and I know what we're thinking. A lot of the people on this call run giant flex teams now. So like, dude, these are the greatest leads on the planet, right? The point I'm trying to make is most agents don't have that experience. So if, for example, flex is a part of your value prop, if you tell an agent I have a Zillow flex account, it's going one in ear and one out the other, right? It's not something where they understand the practicality of that. So I hear, and again, we Humanize, we get thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of recruiting calls. So I hear this stuff pretty regularly. A lot of the time we'll just feature dump on people. Hey, we have leads. We get Zillow, Realtor.com Market VIP. I've got pay-per-click, YLOPO. I've got all this stuff. And the agents are going, cool, a bunch of online leads that aren't going to convert and do shit for me, right? Versus explaining the how. Right. So here's how Flex actually works, Tammy. Right. So I want to explain to you the basics of like how this actually works for an agent on my team. So we're one of a handful of teams in our entire market that's been hand selected by Zillow to not just represent them, but also help their customers out here at a local level. And the way it works is if I'm a consumer and I go on Zillow, I can look at 100 houses without ever talking to anybody. And when I find the one that I like and I go, oh my gosh, I want to see this one, I can schedule a tour online. I can select a specific day and time that I want to go see it. And then what happens next is that consumer gets connected live with you on the phone, a buyer that wants to see a specific house at a specific time. It's pretty hard to screw up that type of opportunity, right, Mr. Buyer? The idea here is, you see the difference between the two? You explain the how, not the what, and what it's actually going to do for them and what it looks like actually in practice when they do join your team. Obviously, you're talking about leads and stuff. You have to set some sort of basis that, hey, this isn't an all-you-can-eat lead buffet. As long as you're converting, I'll give you more than you know what to do with, X, Y, and Z. But when you go to explain your pitch and your value prop, it can't just be, I have all of these things. It needs to be, I have all of these things, and here's what it actually does for you as an agent. Otherwise, you're speaking a foreign language. Does this make sense to everyone? And this doesn't matter if you're explaining leads or training or whatever it is. It can be applied to any model for any brokerage. You just have to tell the agent how exactly it's beneficial to them and what it actually means. Otherwise, it's just a complete waste of time. Okay. A couple of things to remember when you're actually pitching someone. And yes, we're going to use pitching because this is a sales scenario. Nothing makes a sales situation from a persuasion perspective easier than giving them answers to questions and problems that they have. If a problem that they have in their business now is, hey, I don't have enough customers, I'm struggling to prospect X, Y, and Z, we fill that gap with Zillow Flex. If they're saying, hey, Chris, I have clients coming out of my ears, I have 10 escrows open and I have 10,000 things going on, and I feel like I'm dying, cool, we have a full back office TC system that can help with that. When you're plugging holes in their boat with solutions that you have, it shows active listening, and that's what we're really after. Showcasing real stories. If you're a big established team or brokerage that's been around for a while, I can guarantee you that you have tons of success stories on your team. Sharing those with agents can really help make it a little bit more practical and not just a pitch with something that's not exactly real. If you're a new team or brokerage that doesn't have a whole lot of track record yet, guess what? Who can you use as the example? Yourself, right? You are agent number one on your team or brokerage, and I'm sure you've helped yourself get out of a rut. You can use yourself as an example. And lastly, keep it outcome focused, right? Showing them how these things are going to help, not just what will you do for them and what the features are. I don't know if you guys have ever sat through a presentation for any type of product you're buying. You're selling something to these agents. The feature dump presentations suck so bad. And I know we've all been through them before. It's boring. It's not engaging. And by the end of it, we're like, okay, do something cool. I'm yawning here and this is getting rad. Okay, before we continue,
I do want to chime in there. Like feature dumping is different than like value stacking, right?
Correct.
So feature dumping is just not getting any feedback from somebody and just vomiting all of the reasons why you're so cool on top of that other human being. But value stacking is asking really great open-ended questions and then creating this very specific line of like, and we can do this for you. And I think that we have a solve for that thing. And when you get started, I think we'll actually be able to solve that in 3 months of you starting. We'll get you unbottlenecked with transactions. If they mentioned, oh man, I get buried in paperwork all the time and it stops me from selling more houses or whatever the thing is, the objection is that they had. Being able to value stack is very, very helpful because it makes people go, oh my gosh, they're paying attention to me and they have all the tools that I need to succeed. So
100%. And all of this, and we'll get to this momentarily, comes down to having a standardized, defined interview and scripting process for these conversations, right? You just shoot from the hip, right? Justin, for Shiloh, do you have a standardized pitch that you run through 1,000 times a week at this point?
Every single time, and it's ROI based. I'm asking very open-ended questions to see like what's their production levels, average price points, things like that. So by the time we get to the pricing page for Shiloh, I can very clearly go, okay, cool. So using Shiloh, it looks like this is exactly what you're going to get from it, basically, like an ROI based conversation. So
when you get good at having these conversations, it'll just come out of your face, right? But the key is defining it, practicing it, and doing the repetition.
If you guys want somebody that is outside of the real estate industry that does a really good job at it, Alex Hermosi, he's kind of, he's kind of bro, like, so get past that, get past that part. If that's like not your cup of tea, he's kind of broy, but his $100 million offer, basically,
really good book.
Yeah. If you just look up Alex Hermosi, $100 million offer, it gives such a good framework. And these course creators that sell courses online, I'm actually in a mastermind yearly with a lot of big names in that industry because they are brilliant at pitching things because they have to create some new course to get people to pay a ton of money and some new event. Basically, they're always upselling at all times. So I hang around those guys because they're so freaking good at pitching and creating marketing. So definitely take a peek at that.
100%.
Kelsey, broy, just like, I don't know, lots of tattooed big calf masculine energy basically is what's going on over there in his camp. So you have to, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's also not my cup of tea, to be honest, but he's got some really great things to say. So
love that. Let's talk about closing quickly and then we'll have time for some Q&A. This is the most tactical part of this entire training. I'm going to give you guys the simplest way to, if you want an agent to come work for you and you've pitched them, this is the simplest, most definitive way to close them. This is one of the only things that I would say you could take and almost read verbatim word for word, and it's going to result in good outcomes, right? I hate the pushy, I don't know if anyone's ever seen Glengarry Glen Ross. It's a great movie. The sales styles displayed in that movie are not what I'm going to teach you right now because it's a little pushy. But I'm going to give you a really graceful, tactful way to actually get someone across the finish line. So let me set the stage. You've got someone you've pitched. You're now sitting there face to face with them, and it comes time for decision, right? That's where a lot of us struggle, I think, is that moment where it's like, okay, what happens next? When we think about closing and kind of continuing to set the stage, it isn't pressure, right? Pressure and this whole idea, please, the leads aren't weak, you're weak. That is an Alec Baldwin quote from Glengarry Glen Ross. It's epic. Thank you for that, Kelsey. Closing gets a bad rap. We're all closing everyone at every point in time, right? I don't think it's pressure. I think it's clarity and action. So when you reframe your mind like that, it gets a little bit easier. Using assumptive language when you're going to go and close someone, I like an assumptive close way more than I like the manipulative, gross, pushy stuff, right? An example of that, I think you'd make a great fit for our team, and you'll see where that fits in momentarily. And you can test temperature with people along the way, right? Before you even get to it, one of my favorite things to do is mid-pitch with any product, whatever it is, humanize, an agent, anything. Hey, so based on everything we've talked about so far, how are you thinking about this on a 1 to 10 today? Right? Just in terms of so they can start wrapping their mind around it at little boy shape or form. What do we think happens when they start saying in the middle of the call, oh yeah, it's like an 8 or a 9? They're starting to sell themselves a little bit, right? Which is what we're after. It's a self-affirmation. And then setting next steps. And I'm going to show you what this sounds like now. This is the script that you can take and go and implement right after we get off this call with the very next interview you do. And I'm going to read it to you guys because there's a couple little things in here that I think are super important. So I'm with Gary Ashton today in Nashville, so I'm going to use Gary as an example. Gary, this has been an awesome conversation. I think you'd make a great fit for our team here at ABC. What I'd like to propose, if you're cool with it, is the following. I'm going to shoot you over an offer letter with everything you and I talked about in writing so you have it. I put this in parentheses for you guys. I want you to send people offer letters, right? Who else does that? No one. When I encounter real estate teams and brokerages of all the people we talk to, almost no one is doing something like this. Go on Canva, go whatever. If you have to hire someone on Fiverr.
The fine touches. I was just about to get to that. The fine touches matter here.
Yeah. Make it look sick. And I can send you guys an example. I got to dig through my archives to find mine. Make it look legit. For those of you guys that have been in corporate America before, like make it look legit. I want a one pager with your logo and a letterhead. And it's super concise and clear and cool. Clarissa, I'll find mine and I'll send it to you guys in an email after we get off. The point I'm trying to make is this is part of the close, and I'll tell you why. So I want to send you this offer letter with everything you and I talked about in writing so you have it. If everything looks good in that offer letter, Mr. Agent, just reply to me letting me know that it all looks good, and I can shoot you over an independent contractor agreement and get you scheduled for onboarding. Does that sound good? We're taking all the pressure off, and guess what happens if you give a badass pitch? If I gave 10 of those with the framework that I gave you guys in this closing, what do you think happens like 50% of the time in person? They go, oh yeah, you just send me the ICA agreement. I'm in, right? And they kind of close themselves. This takes all the pressure off though of, well, I need to think about this and I need to do X, Y, and Z, et cetera, et cetera. They know what the tactical next step is. I'm going to get a letter from Justin with everything we talked about in writing, and if everything looks good, all I got to reply is I'm in, right? Taking all the pressure off like this is so different than what happens everywhere else, right? And this is what's going to make us different. In other places, are you all using slides to pitch? Yeah, Kelsey, I've seen slides, I've seen printouts, there's all sorts of stuff, and we can probably get some good examples of that and kind of go over that in a concurrent session. The point I'm trying to make here is most times when they're face-to-face with someone is going to hard close them, right? Hey, so I can get all the paperwork started. Let me know. Let's just pull it out and let's go right now. No one likes that. When we take the pressure off, a lot of the time, it's like an option close. They're going, oh, cool. This makes sense. And it goes in a good direction a lot of the time. I'll send you guys an example of this offer letter. This close though, every person that I've shared this with that actually goes and implements it is like, oh my gosh, why did this work so well? It's just an assumptive, easy way to do it. Cool. Is anyone going to actually go and use this? Can someone give me a thumb? Okay, a couple people. Kelsey's like, I'm doing it. All right. A couple of frequently made mistakes that actually I'm not going to go over because we need to get to Q&A and go from there. Okay, so a couple of key takeaways, then we'll have time for Q&A. We're going to send out all the scripts that we talked about, templates on this presentation shortly. So I'll send it out after we get off this call. Give us probably a couple hours and you'll get an email. If you're going to spend time outbound prospecting, working works, right? If you don't go out and make those phone calls, nothing's going to happen. And this last part, I put a winky face here because it sounded kind of harsh after I wrote it, but I care about you all, so I'm going to push you. If you aren't practicing your own recruiting conversations, right? Whoever they're with, if you want to role play, like ping me, ping Justin, I'm sure he'd be happy to, right? You're not allowed to be pissed off that your agents don't practice their own scripts, right? I put a winky face there because that sounds harsh, but I'm being serious with everyone. Kelsey's like, ouch, that stings. We have some time for Q&A. So what kind of questions, comments, concerns? I know the chat was going pretty wild during our conversation with a lot of different questions and stuff. What kind of questions do we have around any of these conversations? And feel free to unmute yourself and ask them. Thoughts?
Anybody?
Mike?
Yeah, Chris, I'm with the big company, but I've been there for a long time, like
congrats
with the XP. And so is there a difference between I had an interview with Flax. So I think I can get onto that.
Yeah.
But I need to build my team. So when you're recruiting for that team, is it different than recruiting for a brokerage, I would say?
Different conversations for sure, and different avatars probably too. Mike, for the broker, which brokerage you at, Mike? You said EXP?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I mean, traditional brokerage, like avatar is, I mean, I guess it depends on the model, but it's usually like a little bit of everyone, right? Like brokerages are cool with, hey, if you're a good person, come work here. For Flex specifically, my favorite avatar, and I might get some heat for this, I look for an agent that's done, it's really simple, at least 5 transactions all time. I don't care if they did them in the last 6 months or the last 6 years. 5 transactions all time. They fit from a culture, character, coachability perspective, and they're tech literate. Those are pretty much my 3 big things. The little variable that I would say, if you can find it, some of my favorite people to recruit are people that had B2B or B2C customer service or sales backgrounds, especially for Flex, right? So I'll give you an example. Like bartenders crushed it. You had to teach them how to do everything, write a contract, show a house. But like bartenders did really well on Flex. Car salesmen did really well. People that came from like sales backgrounds, selling software or anything, did really well. The question you got to ask yourself, Mike, is do you want to teach someone some of the real estate basics, or do you want to teach them how to sell? Right. And if the answer is, I can teach someone how to write a contract, I want someone that can sell shit, then you can be a little bit more flexible with your avatar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I let my TC handle the contract stuff. I just need them to sell. What do you use for a value proposition of Flex? I just had one meeting with it, so I don't.
Yeah.
It seems expensive with trying to do splits with the team. So
it is.
It's almost a separate kind of financial model that you have to run for a specific lead source.
And maybe this is not this call. So
no, we can totally dive deep on this stuff if people find value in it. I always ran Flex, to Justin's point, as a separate P&L, Mike. Like Flex, I looked at it as its own separate business because, again, in full transparency, I looked at it as a loss leader. It was like a Costco hot dog for me, right? I made almost no money on the Flex side, but like with ancillary businesses, mortgage, title, and escrow and stuff, and repeat referral, it gets really worth it.
Because you get extra deals.
Yeah, I mean, here's the way I look at it, dude, and this is getting super philosophical, but the way I look at it is, if I got a Flex lead, if my cost to acquire a customer is 40%, right? If you add in agent compensation, it's like 72% of the commission as your CAC, right? Knowing that, the intrinsic value of that lead, if I stay in touch with it and continue to nurture it over a long period of time, is unlimited. Right? Because if I get repeat and referral business out of it, it's game over. So
it's also a great recruiting tool. If you're looking to scale a team, yeah, it makes a ton of sense.
Because you can hand them leads. Well, that's what I was thinking. I said, there's a packet of leads, but they also cost a lot. Like somebody's got to pay for it. EXP wants their cut. Zillow wants their cut. My minimum fee is 25%. If they want a reduction in their commission, in their gross, in their cap. If not, if they don't want a reduction in their cap, then I can do something different. But
yeah, there's 10,000 things there. Mike, shoot me an email. I'll put my email in the chat. Shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to go through some of this in detail with you.
I'm with and I am a 50-50 split with all of my Flex members after they pay for the 40%.
Yeah.
And, tell my team members the avatar I'm looking for is 100% of zero is zero. So I'm here to help business. And if you look at this, like, this one transaction that I made $2,000, because that's really what they make a lot of times, then you're not the person for me, because that's not the $2,000. The deal is their aunt, their sister, their brother, all of you, you're building your business and you don't have any business anyway. So I think that's what's important, is, do you want to learn how to do this business? And new agents truly, in my opinion, are the best for Flex, to train them the way you want, because they're hungry and they don't have any business. So just a little suggestion, Mike. And also, I don't think you'll make money on Flex as a team leader if you only give them 25%. So I would just go out of the gate. It's 40% to Zillow, 50% to me, and that's how it is.
Yeah, Kelsey, that's a really good call out in the chat as well. And Clarissa, I agree. I mean, you are getting appointments at the end of the day. You're getting live transfer to human that says, I want to go see 123 Main Street. So it's like one of those things, especially for newer agents. If you can't figure out how to convert that, you should probably rethink your life in the sales industry.
I mean, like, hell, they even like schedule it for you now, like a real-time tour. Schedule it for you. You don't have to go on showing time.
You don't even have to do anything. You just need somebody that's excited to hop in the car right now and go show a house, you know? So
Justin, can
love
I
that
on top of that real quick? And I think that is that a lot of getting into Flex for the first time, they think about their current conversion rates and they don't think about the fact that those conversion rates, you know, should and will go up, right? So yeah, you're getting appointments, but if you get comfortable at 4% conversion, you can still blow up a lot of those appointments. You know, if you're in Flex, you should be thinking 8%, 10% conversion working with those leads. And then you start to get to a place where it's better than break even. But when you take the second, third, and up to fifth year implications of a Flex campaign, now you start to really get a lot more profitability.
We're going to do a session on this. Justin and I are going back and forth in the chat right now. We'll do a full session on this to talk about it a little bit more in detail. We're over on time. I want to be conscious of everyone's time. Couple of quick things. Next session's a week from today. Same time, we're going to be going through sourcing candidates. So all of the marketing efforts we can do to actually get inbound candidates coming in. 5 seconds of Human Eyes and Shiloh. You guys know who we are. If you're curious, go to our websites. There's all sorts of cool shit on there. We're going to send out homework in terms of scripting and talk tracks and best practices, right? So you'll get an email with that. Put it into action. The last thing I'll say is if you're not in our Facebook group, I just put the email inside, the link to our Facebook group. Conversations, everything that's getting asked right now, question-wise about Flex is in this group, right? It's free to join. It's a Facebook group. I can think of like 10 examples of posts in there within the last couple of days that are literally on everything we're talking about right now. So it's how we keep the conversations going between sessions. You guys should definitely jump in there and check it out, and we will go from there. So appreciate everyone's time. I will see you guys all next week. Whoa, we got balloons again. Thank you, everyone.
Don't work. All right. See you guys.
Later, Justin.
Later.